People who weren't as Christian as you think. Christian figures. There are many figures in history who contributed to science, culture, religion, and equality throughout history, and Christians will often like to claim these figures as being part of their religion. However, a closer analysis reveals they were not as Christian as commonly thought, and I will explain examples in this video. Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton formulated the theory of gravity and is often remembered as an Anglican who was motivated by his faith, but in his private writings he denied the divinity of Jesus and found it unnecessary to pray to Jesus. Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon advanced the scientific method and is viewed as an Anglican scientist, but he wrote in his private letters that philosophy leads to atheism. Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein formulated theories of relativity about space-time and the speed of light and is viewed by some as fighting against a godless nation. However, Einstein was clear and stated that he did not believe in the Bible or God. Max Planck. Max Planck revolutionized quantum theory, and some view him as religious, but he clearly wrote that he does not believe in God or Christianity. Victor Ambartsumian. Victor Ambartsumian advanced astrophysics in Russia, and he was baptized and raised in an Oriental Orthodox church. However, his letters show his change in beliefs as he rejected the idea of God. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States of America and had interest in the Bible. However, his letters to his friends show that he disagreed with Jesus and was skeptical of the Bible. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Baptist pastor and led the civil rights movement for the equality of black people in the United States. However, his academic writings show that he did not believe in the divinity of Jesus or the supernatural parts of the Bible at all. Therese of Lisieux. Therese of Lisieux is one of the most famous modern Catholic saints. However, in the last months of her life, she abandoned belief in her religion and denied the reality of the afterlife. Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is a famous Catholic woman from recent times who is seen as the embodiment of kindness. However, she expressed in private that she did not fully believe her faith and was afraid to say so. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was crucial in abolishing slavery in the United States, and the abolitionist movement is associated with Christianity. However, Lincoln's close friends report quotes suggesting he did not believe in the faith. William Blake. William Blake is seen as a great Anglican poet whose writings are beloved by Christians today. However, his poems are full of statements that show his beliefs were metaphorical and God was only as real as our imagination. Constantine I. Constantine I was the emperor who legalized Christianity in the Roman Empire and called the First Council of Nicaea, so is seen as a great Christian emperor. However, Constantine sided with Arianism later in life, denying the divinity of Jesus, and banished Athanasius 5 times, who was the greatest defender of Trinitarianism. Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was one of the leading first-wave feminists who contributed to women gaining the right to vote, and these individuals are sometimes considered to be operating on biblical values. However, she harshly criticized Christianity for being sexist in her book The Woman's Bible. Matilda Joslyn Gage. Matilda Joslyn Gage was one of the original first-wave feminists who Christians claim adhered to biblical values, but she blamed historical misogyny on the Christian church. Cassie Bernall. Cassie Bernall was a high school student who was tragically killed during the Columbine shooting in 1999. Afterwards, her mother wrote the best-selling book She Said Yes, where she is portrayed as a Christian martyr who died for confessing her faith in God to the shooters. However, this confession was fictional. Cassie never said yes to God being real, and in reality she hated her Christian parents. Thanks for watching. I will make my next video about why the ontological argument for God's existence fails.